Welcome, everybody, to another Thursday with Maurice. And I'm Elisa, the Rebel Crone, and it is really my privilege and honor to do these interviews with Maurice on Thursday. He's a very special man to me. So often in life, I feel like a lot of times our relationships aren't that reciprocated. But with Maurice, I feel like there's this beautiful give and take. There's a person there that's listening and supporting me for being exactly who I am and vice versa. And I feel like that is precious gold in our world. That is what we're all longing for, isn't it? Is to really be heard, to be listened to, and to be accepted for who we are. And I'm so happy to be able to have this relationship with this precious man and to be able to have this context in which to share him, and selfishly to have this hour and a half. Sometimes it extends into another hour or more on either side of the thing where we keep talking, but be able to share this with you. And I hope through these Thursdays that it's uplifting for you as it is for me. You know, on a personal level, it is immeasurable. And sometimes it's things that come out between us. We don't plan this. We have a basic idea and then we are going with the flow. And sometimes it's like, yeah, and like we're clicking and it's things I feel like I'm remembering and yes, that's it. And other times there's new things that come in. And other times it's just we're talking about things that, I really know, and it's great to share with a kindred spirit. So I hope on all those different levels that we can speak directly to your heart and to your spirit to strengthen that connection. Because after all, isn't that what it's all about? Is that connection between us, our higher self, our true self, get that stronger and stronger. I have a feeling today our conversation is going to go right actually in that direction. So without wasting more time jabbering here, I'm going to go ahead and introduce my guest. I guess you're not my guest. You're my co-host. Hello,
I'm
Maurice.
your friend.
Friend, you're my friend. This is true. Welcome.
Hey, good to be here with you, Elise.
Uh, cool. Well, both Maurice and I were traveling last week. We both got back on Monday. He was up in Virginia Beach to the Archaics event, the big meetup event that was there. I was in Boston and my precious nephew, getting married for that wedding. And so I thought that's like a great place to start, Maurice. We were sharing a little bit earlier between you and I about the meetup there. And I would love for you to share with everybody, not like the details of what Jason is sharing, because we all know that he's incredible with what he does and all that. But I would like to hear from a different perspective, you coming in as what I call a wise elder, because you're going to see things differently. People are going to respond to you differently. You're going to have a total different, let's say, mission or just stuff that you work. Like your magic is different magic. So I want to hear about like the magic and the stuff that you participated in, that you were witnessing. What are the details, specific topics that were up? Anyways, the microphone's all yours, Maurice.
Well, I'm going to reveal a secret right off the top. We got going and we're about 10 minutes into it, it felt like. And I was halfway through a pretty good spiel. And then she said, "Oh my God, I forgot to turn the recording on." So we're starting over. So but I had a practice run, except nobody heard it but her. Anyway.
It was good. This will be even better.
But at least I know what a general direction and what you were kind of alluding to what we were actually doing. Yeah. Yes, I went up there with hell. There were five of us on the airplane together, and we flew up to Virginia Beach. Anyway, we got there. We were at a beautiful place on the Atlantic Ocean. Oh, it was great. And we went. And Jason had his meeting. He did not record it. It was for the members that were there. There was, geez, I don't know. There was over 100 there. I was at 110 with 20, 30. I don't know, but there was a lot of people there. But we had a lot of, we had breaks where we got to interact with each other. And to be honest with you, we started it out beforehand. Let's see, we got there Wednesday. It was probably Friday night, Thursday or Friday night. We had a get together in town at a restaurant that the organizers of the meeting had arranged and let it all out. That's the kind I don't do that kind of thing. In that sense, I follow along and shut up and pull. But when we were there, those are wonderful too, because we're at a restaurant, we're interacting with each other, and there's like 30 of us in there. So the waitresses and the kitchen help are real attentive and all of that kind of thing. But we have occasion to get into conversations. And in my case, and I was out front smoking a cigarette, and one of the guys who I didn't know, I don't know most of these people personally, came out and he sat down, he started talking to me. And I don't even remember what he was specifically talking about, but we got into a hell of a deep conversation, and it was personal to him primarily. And I just like, what I do, I listened to him. I heard him. I heard what he was saying, and I considered it. And we had a nice conversation. It must have been 10 or 15 minutes we were talking. Well, okay. So then he goes back in, I go back in, and we're doing our thing. And honest to God, at the get together on Saturday, that guy came up to me 3 or 4 times and said, "You don't know how much I appreciated what you had to offer to me." I don't even remember what I offered to him, except I acknowledged that I remembered him, and I knew damn well that it was a good conversation. Well,
that's the power, as I was talking about, Marie, is the power of listening to somebody, right? And really bearing witness to somebody and being there for them. And I'm sure you shared wise words as well.
I am too, but I don't remember what they were, because they were unique and specific to him and his circumstance. So it didn't need to be broadcast all over the world. But the same thing happened even at that get together. We'd go out. I'd get engaged in a conversation with one person, or maybe 2 people, or 3 at the most. And the next thing you know, it's another version of that. People were, what I noticed across the board, and that includes within the house that I stayed at, where there were half a dozen of us living, she had a big house and she had a lot of beds, and it worked. People this time around they weren't asking worldwide questions, or they weren't talking about issues across the boundaries of the continents and stuff like that. They were really focused on their own internal situations, their lives, who they were, and how they were going to either continue what they've been doing or make changes in their lives. And I'm telling you that again, across the board, they were talking about that as it related to their own personal lives. And that is the one thing I noticed, and that you might have an insight as to what that is in terms of the larger picture. But that is what I saw, and that's different. Most times I've been around people, they talk about other things. They don't get real personal real quickly.
Right.
But this time around, they did, and that's unusual to me.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things going on with that, Maurice, and one would be just the nature of the vibrations that are moving. And we can all agree that there's big changes happening. It's a big separation. Some people are going deeper into the world. Some people are transcending out into a different world, a higher vibration. In that higher vibration, it's all about personal responsibility. The only way you can raise your own vibration is not because of facts out there. It's going to happen because of what you do in here. And
let me interrupt right there, because you just used a word that I don't want to forget about. You said that there's a lot of them that are looking at it about what is their personal responsibility. That's what I ran into. That's 2 words that describe what I saw them struggling with or facing. What they were asking themselves and bouncing it off of me to see what the hell I could offer to them, if I could offer anything, about what they were asking themselves, what is my actual personal responsibility to me, them, finally, as,
Finally,
as opposed to what am I supposed to do in this, for the other all the time. But where am I in this mix? They are looking at them freaking selves, and they want real answers. They don't want no silliness or things, the standard answer. They want to know who they are. And
I think
that's what
Maurice,
they're looking for.
that's what exactly what people are looking for. And I think that is the a direct reflection, or should I say a rebound from the craziness that's going on right now, of this agenda that's being pushed and all the craziness. We don't need to go into that. We're all very well aware of that. And we're very well of the other players, maybe not specifically who. There's a lot of speculation, but we know there's other players at higher levels fostering craziness and separation. But I think the rebound is that, yes, some people are going to go into it and they're going to be pissed off about it, and they're going to be ready to fight. And then other people are going to be like, too much, too much, too much. I'm not going to let that make me crazy. That's not where it's happening. I can't change that. This is the only thing I can change. So I think it's like a blessed rebound from an agenda that's a dark agenda, is that this powerful light is coming off of it. People are there. But I wanted to share something too, because my other idea with in particular with what Jason's doing right now, he started this Archaics, I think, is it 3.0, where he is interviewing and working with
Yes.
the mystic, esoteric, spiritual, kind of opening up that whole thing. And because I think that this is a direct reflection of this, is because he's done that it is also, it's drawing out other things in people. I mean, he's not creating, it's just the people coming to him. The field has expanded around him. And this is the kind of things that are being now drawn, as opposed to what he was doing before, the initial draw in. He's widening the borders of the tent, so to speak. And with that, people are like, okay, now they're in this process, with him on that. So that's kind of just my idea behind it on those two things. But I love that you were sharing with me before too, that there's, instead of a group, you were having these very individual conversations about personal responsibility, about relationships. That's where it really comes to roost, right? It's like
that seems to be on the mind of a lot of people in their own private lives.
I'm telling you, and before we started, everybody, Maurice and I had spoken about a few things, because I was at a family wedding and I was sharing something about, that this whole thing. And I wasn't going to share it, but I'm going to share it, because by God, my family doesn't watch my stuff. I don't have to worry about them getting on here, but I would never say anything disparaging. But I think this is interesting. Maybe not the first part. Let me just give you everybody a little background. I come from a very small family. My parents were both only children. They both had very tragic upbringings. I only ever met one grandparent, and she died very early on. So it was just limited. I just had my brother and I never had children. He has two boys. One of them got married. I love those boys so much. It still is amazing to me that they are the fruits of his loins, because are incredible young men. My brother and I, though, came from, a family, and Maurice, this one, that came from a generation that was very compromised. My dad was born, I think, in 29, and my mom like 34, 35. So they were really coming into adulthood in the 50s, and we all know what that was all about. They totally were not the hippie generation of the 60s. They were that old kind of trust the government, trust the this, trust authority, all of that. Yep. And it's a lot of compromising has to go on within oneself in that generation. And so the dysfunction from that, and the dysfunction from their childhoods, which were both messed up, came to roost in my brother and I. We both had a lot of physical, structural challenges with our bodies, and just everything kind of came to focus there. We had a very tumultuous relationship between my brother and I. We were like two cannons firing in, at each other, and it was all, it was just not great. We fought hard as kids. I mean, we fought like hard fighting. Like I would have to play dead sometimes to have my brother stop, let my head above water, or he'd be choking me. And the next second I get up and I flip him the bird and spit at him and run. So I was just like, the fight was on. I was not going to let him get the better of me at all. But then again, I was bigger than him for a few years, my older brother. So I'm sure I probably ruled over him a little bit as well. But we were the bottom line, we were the expression of a dysfunctional family, a dysfunctional generation that's very different than the generations now. Not to say that there's not dysfunction, but there's a lot more light in information in the world available and more routes to take. It was more limited then. Wouldn't you say, Maurice, like that?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. But what I'm coming to with this is, so my brother, one of my saddest things in my life had been that since my parents both had passed 5 years ago, my mom passed away. And since then, I have not spent any time with them. And that's the only family I have. And I've never been invited to anything, a family get together, a holiday or anything. It was always like, I just like, I'd love to be invited. I never was. And finally, I got to the bottom of it with my sister-in-law on this last trip. And, where she said that she had not enjoyed being around us, my brother and I, because it was just, it's just
still the same version, an older version of the old kids.
It had been but then I had to say, I'm so glad I got the chance to be with them, and they invited me because I got to show them something very different. In fact, they had come to visit a few months back, and it was the first time we'd been together in all those years. And what I got to show them is a direct reflection of me taking personal responsibility with my brother. And I want to talk about this because we were saying, I don't know if it was in this or the unrecorded part about drawing a line in the sand. And, this I feel like is like a superpower I've developed over the years, is drawing a personal line in the sand and sticking with it. So with my brother, when we were undoing the house 5 years ago, my sister-in-law casually mentioned, I don't, that, what did she say? She goes, you're not nice to your brother. And that was always a blind spot for me. I've worked on all this stuff in my life ad nauseum, through layers and layers, and that was all something over there. But I took that to heart when she said that, because I could hear what was being said to me through her. And right then and there, and she didn't know that, but in my own heart, I drew a red line in the sand. And I said, Elisa, you will never cross that line again. From this moment forth, you will be kind and loving, and you will see only the best in your brother. Quietly, I did that within myself, never said anything to anybody. From that day forward, I've done exactly that. I've held nothing but kindness and love and generosity of spirit and attitude towards my brother. And in return, what's come back to me has been exactly that. So when my sister-in-law told me at the wedding, like, confessed, like, oh, I hadn't wanted to be around you, I told her, well, I hope that this is a testament of seeing this new relationship between us. And why it happened was because of what you said 5 years ago. And this is what I did. So I finally told her what I did. And, it's like I changed my whole world and my whole relationships because I drew that line in the sand.
I'd like to interrupt on that one, because what you just described as a personal vignette of your life, is it related to your brother in relationship and your sister-in-law? That's a version of taking control of your own responsibility. You do that, and to use Jason's kind of terminology about this, the universe will rearrange itself around you. Do you see it in action, physically? No, but it works. It's that smooth.
Yeah,
but
it is.
By you making that command decision from within yourself and sticking to it and taking responsibility for it, it changed people that they didn't even know what they were doing, but they did. Your brother, he responded to you differently. You didn't mention that, but I bet he did.
Oh, totally.
Your
Yes.
your sister-in-law saw it. She's watching what's going on between the two of you, and something's changed. What's changed? Well, what's changed is Elisa's changed, and
Exactly.
every one of us has that ability within our own life experience to do similar things. The world is going to be the world, but you have the personal option to take control and actually make decisions and stick to them and be responsible for them.
And change your world. It's change.
Yes.
I first tried this when I was in my 30s, Maurice, and I had a lot of anger towards my father because he was a drinker back in the day. He did quit when he was in his, I think, close to 50, and then he stayed sober the rest of his life. And he wasn't a mean drunk. He was nothing ever mean ever came out of my dad. So it wasn't like that, but he was still not, he wasn't connecting. I didn't give the love and the nurturing and any kind of support from him. And inside I was angry, and it would come out all kinds of different ways. So every time I'd go home to visit my folks, my dad and I we'd have daughter father lunch. And it always ended up in a huge argument. My buttons were just right there. And sure enough, he'd push them, I'd push his, and it was just never good. So by the time, like in my mid 30s, I was savvy enough to, done enough personal growth that I knew that I could change my world and I could change my relationship, that I just needed to change. So lo and behold, I went home that time. We went out to lunch, and I had drawn the red line in the sand before I went to that lunch. And I said, Elisa, you will not cross that line. And that line was that none of your buttons, you will not allow them to be pushed. You're not going to react to anything. You're going to sit there in kindness and love towards your father. And by God, Maurice, I did it. It was so difficult. And he never knew any difference. I just sat there and smiled and was nice. And inside, I was fighting this holy battle with the other part of myself. And it's like buttons I wanted to yell. I wanted no. And I would not let myself. And it was work. I was sweating bullets. It was so difficult, but I never showed any of it. By the time we got up to leave, my dad put his arm around me, which was a weird thing. He did for just a couple of seconds. And he's like, daughter, I think we both have finally grown up. And I'm like, Dad, I think we both finally grew up. And never did I ever say anything to him about what happened, the decision I made, because it didn't matter. From that day forward, I had this great relationship with my dad. I was, he always said that I was his best friend. And he was my deep friend too, within certain limits of what I could share and do with him. But it changed. My world changed. My relationship with my father changed because I changed, and it was not easy work, Maurice. It was not easy. That was a huge pattern to reprove. It was a huge pattern to break, but I girded up my loins, baby, and I sat through it, and I did not allow myself. But that's drawing. I call it a red line because it's like red alert, stop. That's not going to happen. So I challenge people out there, offer invitation also to challenge yourself that you can change your world like that. You can change any relationship. There was a guy years ago, Bradshaw, I don't remember what his first name was, but he started talking about dysfunctional families. He wrote books back in the 80s when it was really coming to light, the whole dysfunction and alcoholism and all that, which was a real problem with especially my parents' generation because did a lot of drinking. And one of his things he talked about the family dynamics is being a mobile, and it may be all dysfunctional, it may be all like, but it has a balance. And one person gets sober, it changes, it switches, and then everybody's got to scramble to rebalance to find homeostasis again, right?
Yeah.
And, so that's, in essence, that's what you're doing. And the patterns in your life within you may be all funky and imbalanced as it comes to relating to the other people in your world, family, friends, whatever, work, doesn't matter. You just change you, and that dynamic has to change because it's going to reach a new homeostasis, wherever that is. So you got that power. They don't have to be any of the wiser. Nobody knew anything that I did. And I've done this in my life. I've practice radical forgiveness for things that were difficult to forgive. But damn it, I drew that line and I said, no, no more. So anyway, that's my little spiel here about a part of my trip, which it was great. So it was a great family interaction. That's the background of it, is that is something I've worked for within myself.
Yeah. Well, there's another side of that too. Families is a different set of circumstances, as you know. But say for people that are not family, that are close to you, that you want or have wanted, and you've had a relationship going, and it's not exactly satisfactory for yourself. It's probably not satisfactory for them too, but you're the one walking in your shoes, not their shoes.
Mm-hmm.
So you do a thing like what you just described as related to your brother. You do a version of that with them as well. If you start drawing lines in the sand seriously, and you live up to them, yeah. And yes, they'll feel it. They may not intellectually understand it or even notice it, but they'll change. They'll respond to what you offer. That's just a normal human interaction kind of a thing. Not all of them will respond favorably. Exactly. There's a lot of them that won't. They'll not see it. They'll just continue, pell-mell the way, because they are who they are. Well, that's where you get to make further decisions. Is this relationship really the way I thought it was, or is it since I've decided to become this other, I've made this decision in my own life, I'm doing what I'm doing, and they're just oblivious to it all. Well, that makes you in a position. That was the unifier that I noticed across the board in people. They were coming to relationship decisions in their own personal lives. And normally you might run into a person that's got that going, and that's, you might, depending on how many people you talk to or how your social life is, you might not run into that once every 2 months if you're active with people. And if you're not active with people, you might run into it once a year. I was at a group meeting of 5 days, and I'll bet you I ran into a dozen people, literally. Mm-hmm. Of course, again, it was errands. So they're special. The word special. It's kind of a unique grouping of people that are introspective anyway. They want to know what's going on, not only with the external world, but within themselves. A lot of them are asking, well, who am I? Who am I really? Yeah. As opposed to what, I can read in a book, that this guy, that guy, or the other guy has told me, or this tradition, that tradition, or the other tradition. They want to know it from a personal point of view. So they can speak with personal authority as opposed to group authority. Because somebody else with more power said it was true, it must be true. That's not a sufficient answer anymore for them. They want to know internally who I am and what I'm doing. Am I doing the right thing for myself first? Because just like on the airline, they say, take the air mask first. Yeah. Then you can help other people. If you're busy giving all your energy, well, that story, you run out of energy, and you've got to take care of number one first. It is selfish, but it's not in the stereotypical selfishness kind of a vein. You have to be strong before you can help somebody else, or you can't help them. You're muddying the situation. Absolutely. And people are looking for internal clarity. They are actually looking for that very thing. They're looking for internal clarity so they can know what they're doing. Every one of them, I always threw it back on them. I said, you make up your mind what you want to do. And then we will respond. And if it's a satisfactory response, then you still have a relationship. If it is not a satisfactory response, then you have to look for viable alternatives. But to continue in the old setup is not satisfactory to you anymore. It's causing problems. And you have the power to do something about it for yourself.
Yes.
And that's a summation of almost every conversation I had on that kind of a subject. And I tell you, I had quite a few different people that I found myself one-on-one with where that kind of a genre was going on.
I think that's like it begins and ends with with good, the pure selfishness, the right selfishness, selfish, being self-love, taking
Yeah.
care of this first before anything else. And I want to share a little something, Maurice, part of my journey right now where I am with this is and I don't know if people will be able to relate to it, or maybe it'll be helpful, I hope. But and not to go into any of my personal stuff because this is the place for it, but I can certainly relate. And this is what I do. I know who I am, and I know I have an idea of who I'm growing into be. And I've got a visualization around who that woman is, and an idea what life would look around like that, and like what would be passionate and fun for me. Like, oh my God, this is like the world that I want to create. But I do it loosely, loose ideas, because they're just mind models, right? So I put my mind models around it, but I'm not attaching who the person is, or if a person is, or who's going to be with me with that. I just know this is who this is where I'm moving towards. This is who I'm going to be. And I'm on that journey,
Yeah.
and so I'd say this in my own prayers, my meditation, whatever words you want to put on it, go to my altar. And it's just like, the beauty about working with our higher self is that we have free will, so it's like the catch 22, good news and bad news. And, we all know that using our free will sometimes works for us and sometimes it doesn't work for us. It probably works in the past, if you weren't as awake as you are now, it probably didn't work as great for you because you got what you wanted, but was it really the best thing for you? And so what I look at right now is that I am willing to work with my higher self. I'm willing to work with the higher energies of who I am, because that's who I am. That's what surrounds me. That's what imbues me with life. And that's who has a plan. There's a plan for this life being Elisa. There's a plan for this life being Maurice. There's a plan for this life being you. I want to fulfill that. I want to have all the joy and amazing abundance that's possible for me. So at some point, you got to get out of the stinking way of that, because when we get our own stuff in and like, we're holding tight to stuff and trying to manipulate things, it ain't going to come. You got to get in the flow. So yes, like for me, I have to create this picture I want to go towards, and then I just let it go. And I know I've put it on the altar of my life. I put it on the altar of my life, and it's been heard, it's acknowledged. It actually was heard even before I put it on the altar. Your higher self knows this stuff. But then I let it go. I go, okay, let's see how it works out. Because I'd like this. This isn't working for me here. I'd love to have this, but it's complicated, especially if you've been with somebody a long time. It's complicated, and there are chords of love and all this stuff, and there's chords of things that maybe it's not right anymore. Maybe it is. Maybe they will transform. Maybe they won't. It doesn't matter. You let it go. And I know Jason talks about this a lot, is just in different words, is just you take this creation, you take this, you put your will into it of what would be your passion, what would make you happy, what you would like, and then stinking let go of the details. Just let it flow then, and trust that now life is going to start moving and collaborating and conspiring, conspiring with you, with same breath, is to make all this happen. But it might not look like what you pictured it. It's going to be, the feelings will all be there. It's going to be so fulfilling, but it may look a little like this or a little like that. Who cares? Because it's the feeling of fulfillment we want, right? We want to be with a partner that we connect with, or maybe not. Maybe you don't want to have a partner. I don't know what it is for you, but what it is. And that life will move you in that direction. We just got to trust that. We got to trust when we really let go and our heart's pure with it. Let it happen then in the time that it's meant to happen. Sometimes it's quick. Sometimes it takes a while to work things out. We're in this dense realm of time, the time space continuum, and things have to slowly work and change. And sometimes it's fast. Anyways, I'm going on about, I hope the point I'm trying to make, Maurice, is just about letting go. People say, let go, let go, let God, or something. I don't know. There's some sayings around it, but I like to get the religious stuff out of it. But in spirituality, it's the same thing, is that we create our intentions, we create like the idea of what we want, and then trust and just let things happen. and have your boundaries take care of you because you have to still do all of that. And it's going to move you. It's going to move you. Everything's going to rearrange and you'll be there.
Yeah, but the one thing I do want to point out, not every story has a quote happy ending. As in the fairy tales we were taught as kids.
Yeah.
They don't all, every relationship is not meant to live happily ever after.
Right.
And that's actually a good thing. But in the fairy tales, it's not. So you've got to allow space for separation as the wisest. There's that word, wisest, the wisest choice in the longer picture, the bigger picture. And there's always a bigger picture than we see. No matter how big we see things, there's always another damn bigger view. Somebody will come along that knows more than you, and they'll say, or has insights that can be helpful to you. Okay. And they'll say, what you say is true, but have you considered this? And it's a perspective that you didn't really say, damn, I didn't think of that. And and that allows for your own personal growth, because now you factor in that level of viewing situations as you deal with them in the future. It's a growth. That's the thing that's really talking about life, what's really going on. We are in the process of each individually growing into more than we were earlier. It's like consciousness, though. It's awareness. It's not a physical thing like this lighter, for instance. It's not physical. It's internal.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're describing, like you and your brother, when you were kids, you were knocking each other out around on the ground. You don't do that anymore.
No.
But and for the longest time, you still confronted each other, but you didn't do it physically. You did it a little more psychologically, maturely. Still, and probably with greater lethality, to be honest with you. However, but until somebody decided enough is enough, and as you described it, it was you. It wasn't him.
Well, my sister was the voice that would not, whatever. She probably just had enough, and she didn't say it with love. She didn't say it with, man. She's just like, she was just angry, and she just told me, you're not nice to him. And it was just somebody called my boss. Somebody just pointed out to me it was a blind spot. It's like, oh, and I didn't confront. I didn't say any. I just said, you're right. You're right, and I'm going to change that. And she's probably thinking, oh yeah, right, whatever. But I did. I did. I was thinking something when you were talking, Maurice, about, because it is all energy and it is all flow. We're on our eternal flow of creation and becoming. But in this world, we have beginnings and endings. You breathe your first breath, you take your last breath, and we think death is like this demarcation. There's a death of a relationship. We have our pets and they come and they die. I mean, all this thing, and it's like with such grief that we look at endings because they seem so arbitrarily exact and just like these walls go down nevermore. Where if we really could rest in the truth of, let's say, with life and death and our own beingness and the people we love, it's just a transition. We're not focalizing these bodies anymore, but we're eternal. And then we're going to focalize on other stuff. And as soon as we transition here, we're back all together again, laughing and sharing notes about what happened. And oh my God, how about Earth in 2024? That was a ride, So we're sharing all of this, but so the ending's not a real thing. But so when we love dies, it's because some of the closest people, when they pass, it's catastrophic. It's very hard. And I think in a relationship, and I think in a relationship, Maurice, is I'm trying to work out right now through talking with you, is just that ending we feel of it, that sadness is the relationship's ending, and it's done, it's dead, as opposed to thinking, this to present another idea, and I want you to add to this. What if we thought about it as just the progression? Like, I know if the relationship's not right for me, it's not right for the other person. If there's something better for me, there's something better for them. I'm not the ultimate person for them if they're not for me, right? If we're real about it.
That's true.
if I'm real about it, I can free them up to pursue and to have the love that they deserve and they love and they long for, and the best relationship. And I have it for me. It didn't end, it transmuted. It transmuted from one level to a higher level. It's just it'd be it's a challenging perspective to hold, because there's so much of it says it's ending, it's dead, it's done, and everything that you form together has got to separate out, and that's not fun. But I guess what I'm proposing is there's another way we can look at these things that
Yeah,
might.
that's actually a pretty damn good way of looking at it too. Most people don't quite see it that way, but if you step back and look at it and say, "Damn, at least that's more peaceable." The problem I think is with a lot of people is they're afraid they'll never have a relationship that's satisfactory to themselves, and so they settle. They settle for the best they can find out of the circumstances, and then they spend their then they get in a relationship. Then it becomes, if it's a man and a woman, it becomes a legal binding relationship in this society, and it's then everything works against them to progress past it, and so they settle. So yeah, there's a series of cartoons, or well, commercials. They show a a guy and his family in their front yard, and they're dressed up like freaking 1850 people, and they're chopping the wood and shit, and then right next door is a guy's watering his lawn with his new car and all, and his somebody else is running a riding lawnmower around. It goes back to the family. He says, "We're settlers." There's a lot of people that rather than keep growing and progressing, they just settle. And then they there's an old poem. I can't remember the guy's name. It's called "Most Men Live Lives of Quiet Desperation."
Yes.
I know, yeah.
I don't know
Well,
who said that, but I absolutely know that quote. And I think that's absolutely true. But that's actually, I mean, it's not our problem list. That is your problem list. You've done that. But I tell you what, if you're aware enough, don't you think, Maurice, if someone's aware enough to see that they settle, they're ready for the next step. Because a lot of people don't even see it that way, or they go, I
that's true.
settle, whatever, and they go on. But if it's disturbing to you that you settled and you no longer want to settle, yay, yay, you're on the way out of it.
Exactly true. Yeah.
You're
And the
on
thing
the
is, again, looking back over a relatively long life, I would say it was until situations like that came to an end before the next thing could occur.
yeah.
But before they came to an end, you wanted to hold on to them because it's what you knew. You felt a certain sense of security, even in your various levels of misery about it all and upsetness about it all. At least you knew where you stood in it, and you had that feeling of, well, at least I know who I am in this context. I don't like it, but at least I know it. In the future, I don't know. I might not have anything, and that's fear.
That's fear based. That's it.
Fear prevents us from expanding. I don't know how that actually works internally, but that is true. And people are afraid to step out until they take control of their own lives and say, no, I'm going to dare. I'm going to step out of the patterns that have been preset for me. And you start doing that, and then you start experiencing the things like you have been describing in your own life. That's individually true of everybody who tries it. I'll say this: try it, you'll like it.
But this is the personal growth process, isn't it? And
Yes.
some of us come into the world a few steps down that path, some of us a few there, some of another path, but it is the journey, and the journey is to come out of fear, because the world the way it is right now, we're indoctrinated into fear being a motivator, fear being a constrict. Well, really, we look at fear. I was thinking while you're talking that fear is really a governor, right? A governor, like on an engine, it holds back. It's like saying, okay, power can only go this far in you. The more fear we have, the more we're governing and holding in the energy from moving. And as you start to learn in your personal involvement, you learn to trust the universe. You learn to trust yourself as you're connected to your higher self with the invisible realms. You're an errant, you're going to be trusting. You don't buy into the trust isn't out there. Then your energy, you start freeing it all up. You take those governors of fear, start to come off, and energy starts moving. You start to realize, oh my God, I am the master and commander of my life, and I'm going to, and I can say yes, I can say no to things, and I have this self-power and self-determination. And what I'm presenting is like self-determination, but as it resides in the bigger picture of you. And when you tap into the bigger picture of you, there's a tremendous peace in there because your angels, your guides, your higher self, whatever you want, that the energies, the invisible energies that are there to support you in being the best you can be. Now you can tap into and you can be in fear, and then all the negative energies are going to come in and they're going to take you down. You draw boundaries and you do not allow those in your sacred space. And in your sacred space, which you have control over, you just allow the ones that are going to be in for your highest and best interest. Now, in some of my shamanic training and mystic training, Maurice, is when we create a sacred space, one of the first things you do is you create a boundary around that space. And that's because the invisible energies are far more diverse and powerful than anything happening here. So you create through an intention and a prayer, you create a boundary around what kind of invisible energies, what kind of invisible spirits are allowed in your space. Especially if you're going to kind of transition and you're going to open yourself up, you make some boundaries. There's like the spirits that are anti-me, are against me, are not allowed in. Only the ones that want the highest and best for me, the highest and best for humanity, blah, blah, blah. There's all kinds of ways of putting it, but it's paramount to do. Paramount to do in your life, period, is to have that, is to understand that the invisible realms are far more diverse and bigger, right, than this realm. And there's so much power inherent there that can feed into you and help you, but pick those powers wisely. One of the things I appreciate so much about Jason is he's not taking this on to himself. Where a lot of people will get in a position of having followers, the guru or the cultish kind of behavior. And then people give their power away to that. And then they're caught up in somebody else's energy pattern. It's not about the best for them anymore. So yeah. Anyways, it just, the point here is really, to cultivate your inner realm, is to let down those barriers of fear, is to develop a trusting relationship with your higher self and the higher energies that want the best for you. Man, they're powerful. There's power that can come through each one of us. We can do incredible things if we allow it.
Speak about that just for a moment, because I'm listening and then freaking paragraphs are running through my mind, and then you say something else and another damn paragraph goes through. You talked about the boundaries, the energetic boundaries and the shamanic thing. There's a point where you get to where you realize it's not some exterior force that you have to draw from somewhere else. You realize you get to it's possible. I'll maintain it to you people. It is possible. And it has been achieved on this earth amongst human beings, walking around today still even, that they know that power is them. And that it's not external to anything they always possess. I was reminded by the Lord of the Rings movie. Most people have seen it or read the books if they're lucky. Gandalf, when he's on that bridge and he says, he puts his staff down, he says, "You shall not pass." It's a Balrog, I think, is what it's coming after him. This gigantic, monstrous, horrific beast. He isn't drawn upon some power out there in the netherworld somewhere. He's speaking from his own personal authority, and he knows it. That's all he needs, because he knows that he is the power source.
Exactly. They're not going to do it for you. It has to be done through you. So I say, what energies are you inviting into your world? They come into you. And then through you is your power source where you draw that line to say,
And you have, and that's the point
and
I
you
wanted to
feel
get
more.
at. If I didn't already try to make it, I tried to make it, but I'll make it more clearly, I think. You have that power internally in and of yourself. And once you claim it as your own and wear it and use it, it's not something to go batting people around with. That isn't how it works at all. But you know that you don't need to go beg that borrowed power from some other source somewhere. You are it, and you have the power to reject all of the intrusions just by your very, however you decide to manifest it or express it. You can go do it verbally, you can do it internally. The point
Your
being,
presence. It's
there's
your
nothing
presence.
out there that is more powerful than you are. And once you realize that, it changes everything. It changes everything. And your external behavior looks the same to the rest of the world, but you walk around with a certain sense of confidence and self-awareness. It doesn't matter where you are then.
And
It's
I
all
tell you,
beautiful. It can be, I mean, yeah, there's horrors in the world. That's what this world is. There's a bunch of them in them. And you can find them anywhere you want to look. And then believe me, they're blared all over the place and they are horrible. But that's only, again, you can look at it, you can even look at that, and you can look deeper and deeper and deeper and find out, wait a minute, it isn't exactly like they showed on the surface level. There's more to this and all of that. That's not what I'm trying to talk about now. With the high enough perspective, which I don't necessarily possess at the moment for some of the things that I see running across my information field. But I know deep down that, yeah, if I actually stopped and pursued something, I could actually work my way to a point where I could say, well, I can see how that could be the right thing to do under this specific set of circumstances. And I don't do that often. I just let it go. I don't get sucked in too deeply, and for sure I don't get sucked in emotionally. That's something that we're all subject to. Women more so than men. Yes, I acknowledge that. I'm not a woman. I don't experience it as a woman, but I've been around enough of them to know you guys experience emotionally way more deeply, and way more intricately than men do. But men sure as hell feel things.
well, they
Believe
do.
me, we
You
do.
think about it, Maurice, while you're talking, I was like, it came to my mind about who goes to war. Men go to war, and they're the ones that get really like, I'm gonna fight, and what that's passion and that's emotion, that's the warrior. Those are really strong feelings. Women's feelings aren't, they don't particularly are, I mean, we're all a blend, right? But women particularly are not like, I'm gonna go to war, I'm gonna conquer, I'm gonna, the warrior ish as it comes to the rest in the male principle is pure as feeling. That's passion and feeling. Women's passion and feelings is just different. So I just
I
say
know
like
that.
we can't, yeah, it just we do different, we feel it differently when it comes to like the subtleties, the subtle natures and
That's what I
relationships
meant.
and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah. But
Yeah.
there's other men have plenty of passion for other things, boy. Who's
Yeah,
the one that
well,
who's getting
our
all
hearts. I'll make a case for men amongst the women listening. Our hurts can be hurt too, but we don't talk about it, and we don't we do our best not to show it, because that's interpreted as male weakness, and we're not supposed to be weak. We're supposed to be protective and strong, and
I think
we try to be that way, because in that is our nature. But you know what? Every once in a while, a tear will fall from our eyes, but we'll do it in private.
yeah. I actually think the breaking and the ending of a relationship hits men harder than it hits women, and they have studies for that. Because
Wow.
they internalize it all. Women work through the process. Half the time, a woman's already out the door before she goes out the door. He goes out the door. Where a man is caught by surprise with the whole thing. At least in my experience, that's kind of
That's
because they
true.
haven't been listening or paying attention to the whole process, and a woman's been preparing and doing all this stuff. So it's just it's a different, men, there's plenty of passion and feelings there. They get all worked up over a football game or a baseball game or a this or a that. And so
Mm.
it's in there. It's just whatever that fear. Oh my God, this is a whole other topic. I don't think we're going to do today, but At some point, there's this schism
Eh,
between men and women that that it's very scary for men is the relationship. To have the passion and the opening in with a woman, and I can see why. And in fact, I'm going to do a in my portal on the Rebel Crone website. I just put on a little webinar mini class on finding true purpose. The next one
Yeah.
is going to be living in grace, and is not going to be at all what people think grace is. Is a very different view of grace, and
Boy,
grace
that is
is
that word, when you mention it, believe now that's a word I'm personally aware of. I pay attention to that. Most even women don't use that word around that I hear. And grace, that goes along with this higher level of awareness, by the way. Your
Mhm.
life becomes graceful. And it's not because you're sitting here plotting it in the next maneuver. Is this graceful? It just is. It's part of the being in the flow. And part of being in
Higher
the flow,
vibration, higher
it,
vibration.
yes. And the way we express that kind of being is that person is graceful. They just do in a graceful manner everything that they find themselves encountering.
Yeah.
It's not a bad word. Again, it's a seldom used word in social. I don't hear it mentioned at all. I've used it a few times, but generally speaking, I wish I
Well,
did. I should be using it more.
that's my tagline, Maurice, is the Rebel Crone, aging with purpose, grace, and power.
Yeah,
And
grace
grace,
is really really a word that should be looked at more
well, I'm
assiduously, if you
yeah,
will.
I'm doing a deep dive into it, and I'm starting to like formulate all the things that are coming in through it. And one of the big foundation things that I'm going to start the whole little class on is going to be is the first step into grace is to stop swallowing yourself. You know what I
Stop
mean?
doing what to yourself?
Swallowing yourself.
Oh,
Think
okay.
of like your feelings, and it's for men and women. And women, it looks in a certain way, men another way. But it's like your feelings, your ideas, or you and you just tamp it down. You're never going to come into a state of grace if you tamp down who you are. That's what I mean by swallowing yourself. Like,
Okay, swallowing. I just didn't hear the word.
yeah,
That's all.
swallowing yourself,
Mhm.
because it's just so
Yeah,
visceral. It's like you take, like, here you are, and nope, I'm going to hold it in there.
yeah.
And I think men do it in a specific way and women do it in a different way. And it
Mhm.
doesn't serve anybody. And it doesn't serve a relationship between men and women, because that's one of the foundation things that as we come into our own autonomy and sovereignty and our own state of grace through being who you are, who you're meant to be, being you, then we actually can let down the walls that have been the challenges and the walls that are in place between men and women. And I know we're in an age right now, Maurice, where people are like, well, it's women and men, all this other stuff. Well, if this is that's who you love and that's your persuasion, just fit in other words to what we're saying. We're just old school, and that's how we talk about it. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's male principle, female principle, the two coming together, and we're talking about it as men and women, but whatever.
We're not
Um,
talking wokeism on this channel.
no, we're not, and I'm not going to play to that. I'm going to play to what's true, my experience. That's a different experience. That's not Maurice's experience. There's lots of channels and stuff out there that will talk to you about your experience in that. If this doesn't work for you, don't like that, find one that does. No offense, no judgment
Yeah.
from us.
Well,
It's just,
uh, that's almost like a disclaimer between us.
that's a disclaimer. That's a disclaimer. I don't put it out there right there because I forget that the world looks for a lot of people different from that. But
Mhm.
I think one of the things, Maurice, is that fundamentally there has been this schism, this boundary, this dissonance between men and women it's not a natural thing. And I don't know, I'll have to like meditate and think about it and look into it, because I'm sure there's periods of time, and maybe we don't even have the history of that, of when that came in. When did the battle of the sexes? When did, because I see it working out, especially with women. The older we get, there's an edge to them. And I see why men don't feel safe. A lot of women are just boom, they're sharp, they're angry, with their men. And I'm not saying that men, aren't, they're not listening, they're not doing their part. I can see, I know why women get pissed off. I'll give you the list why women get pissed off, but it does nothing to heal that divide. And I know we weren't going there with it, but I just, because we talked about it, I just wanted to throw that out, that's like,
Yeah. Oh,
there's a divide there.
yeah. Well, there's so many, we get lost going down trails, and we don't want to do that. And we're both kind of aware of that. So we as soon as when I catch myself going down, I just stop myself, and you just did it for yourself. So that's all.
Well,
That's all we can do is the best we can do at the moment, really, and that's what we're doing.
but you know what, the thing to me, like that, going down these, and they're not rabbit holes, they're not, but they're offshoots, they're branches from a tree, and
Right.
it's one tree, and everything's so interconnected. I think you started out, I don't know if this is when I was taping or not taping, but you're starting to say like how complicated it gets in people's minds, like the relationship and this and all this stuff in life, so complicated, but it's not complicated, people. It's not, it's really simple. The manifestation of things looks a million different ways. The manifestation of dis-ease, ill ease, of not being in alignment can look a million different ways, as many as there's people and all the variations and all of that. But it's one simple problem, and the simple problem, what we started with, Maurice, is, and like what you were doing so beautifully at the event, is just, reminding people, helping people to come back into that place of centeredness and personal responsibility, learning that you can draw boundaries in your life, learning that you can say no to things, say yes to other things, you can allow, you can do not allow, all this stuff, and build your personal power. And when you do that, life actually gets a lot simpler. Don't you
It
say your
does.
life, don't you think your life has gotten simpler the older and wiser you've gotten?
You know, the interesting thing about that, your observation is accurate. All I was really doing was encouraging people to continue on the path that they had already chosen. And I was saying yes to them. I wasn't offering negatives on why they were wrong. I was helping, or I was offering my suggestions as to how not only are you correct, but if you continue you'll even have greater results for yourself and those around you in the process. And you know what? Part of this relationship thing, back to the man woman thing, letting go is freeing as well. You're freeing not only yourself from a situation that is uncomfortable, okay, for you, but potentially you're freeing the other person from a situation that is uncomfortable for them.
Mm-hmm.
But neither one of them want to admit it out loud, and it just in that unwillingness to admit it out loud, call a spade for a spade, they endure. I'll overstate it and say a sense of personal misery and frustratedness and all of that. And when you end a relationship, you do it as peaceably as you can. We all are smart enough to know that it's better to do it that way than it is to do it violently, or all the childish, stupid ways that we see people do. We're not there anyway, so we don't do that. We know better. But what you're doing is you're freeing the other person as well, just by doing what you think like you're breaking up the relationship. But don't forget, there's a person on the other side of that it's got their own emotional life to deal with as well. And by you saying enough is enough, they're probably inside saying, "Oh, I hate it, but in a way, I'm kind of glad." If they
But
don't see things like you do.
also I want to throw this in there, because there's many iterations of that, but there's also the one where, let's say you're the errant, and when we say errant, that's archaic terms, and that
Yes,
just means somebody that's not fitting in this world, that's in their waking up process, not woken,
generally the rebel.
waking up. They're all that. Okay, so sometimes we chosen in the past somebody that's not an errant. All right. And as you started this journey and you're moving along, the other person isn't, and they're happy. They like that world. but you're no longer of that world. So you got all that, or family or kids or whatever, but we're just saying now, like just a personal relationship, and it may be okay for them. And they're like, well, why are you disrupting it all? Why are you doing all that? And then you're thinking, well, why am I doing that's nice? Oops, there's the word nice.
You caught yourself.
It's nice. It's fine. It's everything's in place and all. But you know what? You're changing. And just as a reminder is that you got to be true to you. And if it's not working for you, and if there's going to be something better, I'd say better, but different, better for you, there's something else for that person.
That's
They
the
just
point
might
I was
not,
trying to make.
yeah, they just might not know. They may not be miserable. They may think everything's fine, but they're not waking up in this life. In that case, I just say, you know what? You put it on your personal altar. You don't have to go make some big crazy decision. Allow it to work out and just know it's going to. And those things will slowly start to unravel. And there's in the perfect timing, if it's to unravel or something happens and it weaves together tighter. Like for me, I've always throughout my life, and I tell my girlfriends this is, I've had a picture of my relationships not working out. I have a picture of who it is that I feel like that the connection I want, the kind of relationship I want. I don't put a face on it. Could be the person I'm with. I'll give them every opportunity. Like if they can come into that role, there's a role there. I'm moving towards it. I'm going to become that person that person's going to be attracted to. And that's going to be like the perfect fit. Now, if you want to do that and yeah, it could be you and it may not be you. I don't care because my journey is to keep my growth to become the person that can have that relationship. I grow into it, and who that is, beep, beep, does it matter? No, it doesn't matter. So I don't worry about
I don't know what to say past that. You did good.
it. Thank you, Maurice. Well, I think it's probably time to wrap it up. I think we've been going an hour today. And through that tree, we opened up so many other possibilities. To go back to that is just there's one tree with a lot of branches. And
Yes.
every time you talk to, I'm like, oh, and so I have my little notepad. I actually write things down. And also, it's always a challenge is distilling what we're talking down to bullet points to make the stupid thumbnail for face or for YouTube. I'm always like, how do I wrap all this up into like some points to get people's attention?
Yeah,
And
you do pretty good at that too. You really do.
well, I'm learning. I'm learning the whole kind of marketing thing with YouTube where, it is. It's like, what's going to get people's attention at this point? Because it's such a new channel, it's just like, I've got to there's a lot of competition out there. So, it's like, it's get the attention. Anyways, there we go. And everything in its perfect time, right? And you have your little Gandalf kitty. This is Bugsy.
Yeah, Gandalf was right next to me. When my arm went over, I was petting him.
I saw his little face poked in. It was so cute.
Hold
Anyway,
your cat up again. He's pretty big too, isn't he?
yeah,
Or
he's a big boy. Oh, he doesn't want to be picked up right now. He's
okay,
very
yeah. That's why I don't pick Gandalf. I pick him up, and son of a gun, he's about half as tall as I am if he stretches out.
yeah. He's a hefty boy. Yeah, and I got two other girl cats that are a little more delicate, but he's my big
Yeah,
boy. And he's
yeah.
just been on and off my lap the whole time. And I've been petting him. You may not see him, but he's very attention starved this morning for
Yeah.
some
Well, let me
reason.
tell you, dogs are I really love dogs. But I got to tell you, if you get a cat and you have a relationship with it, holy mackerel, that's just something else in the world.
Oh my
In a
God.
good
Okay.
way, too.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So let's sign off, but not, I'm just gonna stop the recording. And I'll cut this part out. But
Okay.
anyways, everybody, thank you for joining us for another beautiful conversation with my dear friend Maurice. And I hope that you enjoyed it. And I hope it moves the dial forward in your life. Till next Thursday, may all the blessings that you deserve be with you because there's a lot of blessings waiting for you to just accept them and be in that place. So As always, peace from within. Until next Thursday.